Yeah, really. You know, one of the dangers that we want to warn against, and I think that this chapter really is helpful. It's an antidote against every bad idea of this doctrine. Tennant really does a good job. But one of the dangers we want to warn against is kind of an either-or reaction. Maybe we could say the pendulum swinging too far one way or the other. So, you know, as evangelicals, we might look at those who say, you can't know that you're saved. It's based on continuing to do good works all the way to the end. And we would say, we believe you have the wrong understanding of the foundation of our peace. How can Paul say things like, there is now no condemnation for those who are in Christ? Am I in Christ now? Is there no condemnation for me? Then why would you say that I can't know that, you know, and I can't have any assurance? So we react against that kind of a works-based justification, justified by faith now, but ultimately, if I add enough good works, I stay justified. But in reacting against that, have we gone so far to say that all that matters in Christianity is justification, or the initial act of faith, running the race, is optional because Christ did it all? And in my opinion, it's almost like hyper-Calvinism, which says the death of Christ, the preaching of the gospel, the living of the Christian life, the prayer life of the Christian, all of that is, well, let's be honest, optional, because all that mattered was that in eternity past, God elected. So why is this even necessary? You know, and the same fatal flaw falls over, you know, in this category of, if Jesus has died for me and I'm saved by grace, then pressing on all the way to the end is just a nice option.
Peter really deals with that in 2 Peter, where in his in the first chapter, he mentions that it is the divine power of God that has granted to us everything pertaining to life and godliness. So everything, you know, there's nothing that you add. And then he turns around and the 2 verses later and says, now for this very reason also, applying all diligence, in your faith supply moral excellence, and in your moral excellence knowledge, and in your knowledge self-control, and in your self-control perseverance, and in your perseverance godliness, and in your godliness brotherly kindness, and in your brotherly kindness love. And he talks about how if you have these qualities and they're increasing, then you're neither useless nor unfruitful in the true knowledge of Christ. But not to have them is to be short-sighted. So he's, you know, how can he both insist that Christ has given you everything that pertains to life and godliness, and then say, for that reason, supply these things? Obviously, there's no lack if Christ has supplied them. So he's not telling us to work for our salvation or add to our salvation, but because you have been saved, there's a response and a life to live, and this walk that we're going to talk about. So he shows us that both are necessary, and we can't ignore one or the other.
Well, Tennant does a good job of giving a balance here. And every time, you know, your pastor may speak about this, or every time you talk, you know, you think of talking to a person at work or in school, maybe if you have children, talking to one of your children about Christ, it's not as if you have to always give everything that could be given. Sometimes, you know, in the pattern of Christ, it's pretty clear. Sometimes he only says enough to make the people think, and then he leaves them to think. And so sometimes we don't mention both sides of everything. You know, we don't always balance it perfectly. But Tennant, because this is a chapter in a book, you know, and this is, I don't know how close his sermon was to this, you know, whether he kind of, generally a lot of the books that we have of old preachers' sermons, they would have gotten their notes and they would have kind of filled it out and made it more, you know, complete for print. And so it is a good balanced chapter, but he does emphasize persevering, our response, more than God's initiative. We really do appreciate being able to interact with you through the comments. So if you have questions or just comments you'd like to leave them below, and we'll get back to them as we have a chance.